Welcome to Malifaux University. 204. Conditions. As the core rulebook says, conditions are ongoing effects that impact how a model functions on the table. In other words, some conditions will help you, some will hurt you, and some will likely kill you. Let's look at some rules surrounding conditions, what conditions are, and how they work. The first rule of conditions is that you can have only one instance of a condition at a time. In Malifaux, as in life, you can have multiple conditions, but not duplicates of the same condition. One of the conditions is fast. You cannot have fast and fast at the same time. You're just fast, not Usain Bolt. Some conditions can stack, however, as indicated by the +X following their names. Burning is a popular condition that stacks. If you already have burning +1 and get hit with burning +1 again, you now have burning +2. There is no numeric limit on how high most of these conditions can stack, but if any of these conditions is ever reduced to 0, the condition ends. There is no burning +0. We'll talk about this more as we go. Conditions are put into 3 groups based on when they end. The first group is for conditions that end when the affected model has finished its activation. These are fast, slow, staggered, and stunned. If you have any of these, it will last until you activate that model and are finished with all of its actions. Conditions that end in the end phase of the turn are adversary, shielded, and injured. When your model has one of these, it will affect the model until all models in both crews have activated and the turn ends. Then the condition just goes away. The third group of conditions is special. Burning, poison, distracted, and focused all affect your models in different ways and are affected by individual circumstances. Let's look at the end of activation conditions first. Fast. Pretty simply, this condition gives your model one additional action during its activation. All models get 2 actions plus a bonus action. With fast, models can take 3 actions and a bonus action, but still cannot take 2 bonus actions. The maximum number of actions a model can take during its activation is 3 plus the bonus action. In a 50 soulstone or larger game, crew leaders and master models already get 3 actions during their activations, so there is usually little effect if this condition is placed on them. Despite its name, it does not affect your movement stat. It just gives you an extra action during your activation. The opposite of fast is slow, and logically, slow reduces the number of actions your model can take by 1. In a 50 soulstone or larger game, master models or crew leaders will then take only 2 actions, and minions, enforcers, and non-leader henchmen in any size game will take only 1 plus a bonus action. Fast and slow cancel each other out. Your model cannot have both of these conditions at the same time. This is where there may be value in giving a master model the fast condition. If you're facing a crew or model that uses the slow condition a lot, like the Brewmaster, who can make you slow just for being near him, you might want to give your models fast preemptively if you are able, so that when they are affected by slow, it will simply cancel out the fast and they can take their normal number of actions. Similarly, if you're facing a model like the Midnight Stalker, who gains fast just for activating on your side of the table, you might want to give him the slow condition somehow to counteract the fast you know is coming. Either way, if a model ever has both of these conditions at the same time, they immediately cancel each other out. The next condition is staggered, and this one actually does affect your movement stat. Think of this one as getting kicked in the knee. It slows you down for a little while, but then you walk it off and you're fine. When your model is staggered, you reduce its movement stat by 2. While this does mean that you can't walk as far with the model, some attacks require you to resist with your movement stat, like Montresor's Toss the Noose attack we saw in another video. A model that is staggered will have a harder time resisting those types of attacks, which is why it's a good idea to load your opponent's cards and crew into your app before the game and see what kind of trouble she's going to cause you. The other effect of staggered is that friendly models cannot move you. Look at Mr. Graves and Mr. Tannen, who are in the same crew. Mr. Graves has the Lead the Way action, which lets him push a nearby model 4 inches and then push himself 4 inches toward that model. If Mr. Tannen had the Staggered condition, Mr. Graves would not be able to move Mr. Tannen unless Mr. Tannen activated and went first, ending his Staggered condition at the end of his activation. The last end of activation condition is Stunned. This one doesn't reduce the quantity of your actions, but does reduce the quality of your actions. When a model is stunned, it cannot declare triggers on any of its actions or abilities. Back to Mr. Graves. He wants to whack the lone marshal with his fence post attack and flips a 10 of rams to go with his stat of 6. Assuming he was successful in his attack, that ram would let him declare the puncture trigger, which would give him a positive modifier in his damage flip. If he were stunned, however, the ram would be irrelevant, and he'd just do a regular damage flip because you cannot declare triggers when you're stunned. The other effect of being stunned is that your bonus actions, the ones with the little lightning bolt, are no longer free. Most models can take a free bonus action on top of their regular action limit. When you're stunned, those bonus actions count against your 2-action limit, or 3 for your crew leader or master models in a game of 50 soulstones or larger. If a stunned Mr. Graves swung his fence post at the lone marshal twice, and then wanted to use his Keeping the Peace bonus action, he'd be out of luck, since he already used his 2 actions. His activation would be over, and then stunned would go away. Since these 4 conditions all go away at the end of the model's activation, they might loop around through the end of one turn and into the next. If your model has already activated this turn and then gains one of these 4 conditions, it will have this condition in the next turn until its next activation is complete. The next 3 conditions are the ones that go away in the end phase of the turn. Keep this in mind. If there are only 1 or 2 models left to activate, it may not be worth your time to give a model one of these conditions, since they'll go away after a few moves. Adversary can be a fun condition to throw in your opponent's model early in the turn if you want to ruin his knight. When you assign this condition, the wording of your model's action will probably specify a characteristic, a keyword, or a model's name. Any model with that characteristic, keyword, or name that then attacks the model with the adversary condition gets a positive modifier to its attacks. An example of this in play is the Dreamer. Let's say he blasts Carlos Vasquez with his Your Nightmare attack. If it's successful, it does no damage, but gives Carlos the Adversary Nightmare condition. Later in the turn, when Lord Chompybits, Coppelius, the Stitched Together, and the rest of the Dreamer's crew gang up on Carlos, they'll all gain positive modifiers to their attacks since they all have the Nightmare keyword. If Carlos survives the whole turn, the adversary condition ends, and all the Nightmare models no longer gain the positive modifier in the next turn. The next condition is Shielded. This is a condition that can stack, as shown by the +X in the name. When your model is shielded, you get to reduce the damage it suffers by 1, even if that lowers the damage all the way to 0. Whenever you reduce damage this way, you lower the value of the shielded condition by 1. When the condition reaches 0, it's gone. Regardless of how high you have shielded stacked though, you can use it only once each time you suffer damage. Let's look at Mancha Roja, the Gremlin Wrestler. He has the My Time Is Now ability that says he gets shielded +2 at the end of his activation if he's within 2 inches of one of Captain Zip's piano markers. Let's say he did that. While Mancha Roja is standing by those pianos, minding his own business, Francisco Ortega charges in and slashes at the gremlin with his balanced sword. Cards are flipped, Francisco successfully attacks, and he does 2 damage. Since Mancha Roja is shielded, he can choose to lower his condition by 1 and reduce the damage by 1, taking only 1 damage. Even though he had shielded +2, he cannot use more than 1 at a time. If Mancha Roja doesn't suffer any more damage for the rest of the turn, his shielded +1 condition will go away in the end phase, and he'll start without it in the next turn. We'll look at Mancha Roja and Francisco Ortega for the last end phase condition, Injured. This is another stacking condition that lowers a model's defense and willpower stats by 1 for every instance of the condition. Let's say we're in a new turn and Mancha Roja doesn't like how close to him Francisco Ortega is standing. The gremlin uses his drop-down takedown attack to remove one of Captain Zip's piano markers and beat Francisco over the head with it. He succeeds and does damage to Francisco. The wording of the attack says that since he removed a marker when he declared this action, Francisco gains injured +1, beyond any damage the attack also may have done. Now, when Mancha Roja attacks Francisco again, Francisco's defense is lowered from 5 to 4, making it harder to resist the attacks. If Mancha Roja were to remove the other piano marker and successfully attack, Francisco's condition after the attack would increase to injured +2, lowering his defense from 5 to 3 and his willpower from 6 to 4 until the end phase. When all the models have activated and the turn is over, Francisco will shake it off and start fresh in the next turn. The last group of conditions have their own special rules. Burning is probably one of the most common conditions in Malifaux. When you have burning +1, you suffer 1 damage in the end phase of the turn. Keep in mind that if you have a way of reducing this damage, such as the armor ability or the shielded condition, it can mitigate this damage. Now, since this condition stacks, you might think that burning +2 would do 2 damage in the end phase, and burning +3 would do 3 damage. Not so much. Burning +1 does 1 damage, but you don't get 2 damage until the condition stacks to 4. You get 3 damage when it stacks to burning +7. Every stack of 3 beyond the initial 1 increases your damage in the end phase by 1. So that gives you a little time to snuff out the flames before you snuff it. We'll discuss how to do that in a minute. Poison acts almost the same as burning. Poison +1 gives you 1 damage in the end phase, which you can reduce with armor or shielded. I know. Why does armor reduce poison? Because it's just a game. Roll with it. Poison +4 gives you 2 damage, and so on, just like burning. Unlike burning, which just keeps going from turn to turn, poison fades a little each turn. After it does damage, you lower the value of the poison by 1. If you had only 1, it goes away entirely. There is no poison +0. The maximum damage a model may take at any time from either burning or poison is 5. Even if special abilities or triggers could increase the damage to 6 or more, no more than 5 damage may come from burning or poison at one time. Distracted is a stacking condition that makes it harder to attack your opponent. Like shielded, it doesn't matter how high it's stacked on you, you lower it by just 1 each time you use it. When you target an enemy model with an action, an attack action, a tactical action, or a bonus action, you suffer a negative modifier to the duel. After the action is over, you lower the condition by 1. If you don't directly target an enemy model, though, you never lower this condition, and it never actually affects you. It's up to you when this one makes a difference. Distracted is negated by the next condition, Focused. Focused gives you a positive modifier to any duel your model is in, opposed or simple, and the resulting damage flip if there is one. Like Distracted, Focused stacks and is lowered by 1 each time you use it, but the highest you can get on Focused is +2. If a game effect would give you Focused +1 when you're already at Focused +2, it just doesn't give you anything. Also note that while you are required to take the negative modifier from Distracted when you target an enemy model, you have the option of taking the positive modifier from Focused. You don't have to use Focused and lower it if you don't want to. When Focused and Distracted cancel each other, they both lower by 1 until one of the two conditions is completely gone. Let's say Tuco Ortega already has Focused +1, and he uses his final action to concentrate, giving him Focused +2. His Bravado ability allows him to push 4 inches toward the Beckoner, putting him 5 inches away from her. The Beckoner does not want to be around Tuco's custom shotgun when he has Focused +2, so she uses her Despicable Promises on him. Tuco needs to resist with willpower, but decides against using Focused to give himself a positive modifier to this duel. They each flip one card. The Beckoner flips a 10 to go with her stat of 5 for a total of 15. Tuco flips a 5 to go with his willpower of 4 for a total of 9. Keeping an eye on the Beckoner's The Party Never Ends ability, he decides not to cheat fate. The Beckoner gives Tuco 1 Brilliance token and Distracted +1. This condition is cancelled out by Tuco's Focused condition and lowers his Focused to +1. The Beckoner spends her second action on Despicable Promises again. Tuco doesn't use Focused, and they both flip 9s, giving him 13 and her 14. Tuco again doesn't cheat and gets another Brilliance token. The Distracted condition he receives cancels and is cancelled by the Focused +1 he had, leaving him with neither of the two conditions and feeling no pain with the Brilliance. Focused is cool because you can choose to give it to yourself, which makes it unique among the conditions. Once per activation, any model can take the Concentrate action, which gives it Focused +1. If it already has Focused +1, then it becomes Focused +2 since they stack, but Focused +2 is still the maximum. Another action important to these conditions is Assist. You cannot assist yourself, but you can target another friendly model within 2 inches who has Burning, Distracted, or Injured. You flip a single card and lower the other model's condition by 1, 2, or 3, depending on the strength of that card. Like most other flips, you can cheat that flip with a card from your hand if you don't like what you initially get. You can imagine the other model patting out the flames, slapping you in the face, or rubbing some dirt on it and telling you to walk it off. Remember that Assist applies only to other models. Unfortunately, there's no stop, drop, and roll if you are the one on fire. With all these conditions in the game, you'll need some way of keeping track of them. One way popular with many players is writing on their sleeved cards with a wet erase marker, as has been mentioned in previous videos. It makes it easy to see and just as easy to remove. Another way of keeping track of conditions is through the use of specialized tokens. Many companies make these with universally recognized imagery. You can also use buttons, beads, or tiddlywinks if that helps you remember what's happening with your models. The printable tokens you can find at our Patreon or in the Wargames Vault work quite well. Wyrd provides an excellent way of keeping track of conditions in the Malifaux app. While playing a game, underneath every model's health track is a space marked Add Condition/Token. That will open up the menu to add every condition in the game. Something like Adversary will have a minus sign next to it so you can take it off at the end of the turn. Conditions that stack, like Distracted, will have plus and minus signs and a running total for the condition so you can adjust it with ease. Now we have to delve into what may seem like an advanced rule, but there's an important distinction to be made between killing a model with an attack and killing a model with a condition. Some schemes and strategies are scored by killing a certain number of models each turn. The rulebook is clear that if a model is killed as a result of a condition, no one gets credit for killing that model, even if your model gave him the condition. It's like the model isn't killed, it just dies. Let's say this Dawn Serpent is fighting with this Alp. The Alp starts off with 5 health, and when the Dawn Serpent uses its Breath of Fire attack, it hammers the Alp with 4 points of damage and gives it the Burning +1 condition. As a player, you might think that the Alp is down to 1 health and is going to suffer 1 point of damage in the end phase from the burning condition, so why not just let it ride? If you let it go, the Alp will die in the end phase. If you're playing a scheme or strategy that requires you to kill enemy models though, the Alp will not count, since it was the burning condition that killed him, not the Dawn Serpent. To get the point for killing the Alp, the Dawn Serpent would need to use another attack on the Alp and directly damage him enough to kill him without waiting for the burning condition to finish him off. This may seem complicated, but when points matter, don't wait for some condition to do your dirty work for you. That's the overview of conditions. Pick up a printable set of all the markers and tokens you need to play Malifaux in the Wargames Vault. If you haven't already, join our Patreon for early, ad-free access to all new content, and be sure to visit the Malifaux University gift shop for the latest in Malifaux-themed shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Links are in the notes below. And remember, play friendly games, keep it simple, and have fun.